Welcome to today's episode of Over 50 and Flourishing. Today, we are doing a deep dive into relationships, and we are tackling what my guest is going to call a divorce detox. Backed by popular demand is Laurie Gerber. She is an expert in the field of life and relationship coaching. She has more than 20 years of experience in coaching thousands of people and couples. In fact, her own career began when she herself engaged with a life coach, and her life, top to bottom, was absolutely changed. After a near divorce experience of her own, she knew that she must use what she learned to help others. And again, we are walking you through what she calls a divorce detox. We will be analyzing relationships, going through everything that needs to be done to assess, and then if you have to make that hard choice to move forward. Don't do it alone. Don't do it without asking big questions, and don't do it without listening to my friend, Laurie Gerber. Hey, look, I get it. Coffee is a morning go-to, but those jitters in the afternoon crash, no bueno. Mud water has been such a game changer for me. It's not your average cup of joe. It's a cozy mix of cacao, chai, turmeric, and adaptogenic mushrooms that'll help you feel focused, laser sharp, balanced, and not wired. It's smooth, it's steady, and honestly, it just makes you feel good. Are you ready to make the switch to cleaner energy? Head over to mudwater.com and grab your starter kit today. Right now, our listeners get an exclusive deal up to 43% off your entire order, plus free shipping and a free rechargeable frother when you use code OVER50. That's right, up to 43% off with code OVER50 at mudwtr.com. After your purchase, they'll ask how you found them. Please support our show. Let them know we sent you. Keep your energy natural and refreshing all year long with Mud Water, because life's too short for anything less than clean, delicious energy. You're eating healthier, you're moving more, so let's talk about your gut. It seems everything is connected to our gut microbiome. Fact is, we're learning so much about how that is key to our mental health, immunity, and of course, digestion. And if you're looking for digestive support, Ritual has your back, or rather your biome, with Symbiotic Plus. It's a 3-in-1 supplement of clinically studied pre, pro, and postbiotics to support a balanced gut microbiome with daily use. So don't you think it's time to get your gut going? Support a balanced gut microbiome with Ritual Symbiotic Plus. Get 25% off your first month at ritual.com/over50. That's ritual.com/over50 for 25% off your first month. Spring is here, and as the seasons change, so do our skin's needs. Shifts in the weather can leave our skin feeling irritated, tight, dry, especially if you have sensitive skin or conditions like eczema. But what if your skincare routine could actually help calm your skin down and, bonus, reverse the signs of cellular aging at the same time? Well, cue OneSkin. Founded and led by an all-women team of skin longevity scientists, OneSkin is redefining the aging process with their proprietary OS1 peptide, the first ingredient proven to help skin look, feel, and behave like its younger self. Get 15% off with code OVER50 at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code OVER50. After your purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Invest in the health and longevity of your skin with OneSkin. Your future self will thank you. Laurie, I am so glad you're a regular. I love you. My audience loves you. And I think you are just the relationship guru for women in midlife. And man, we're going to touch on a touchy, sensitive subject today, but one that needs to be talked about. And that's essentially what you're calling divorce detox. A lot of women struggle with that, and they I think deal with a lot of past trauma from relationships, and they don't know where to start, and they don't know if they're ready. I hear that from women all the time. Well, I'm just not ready. I'm not ready. Well, how do I know I'm ready? Yeah, I'm going to let you take over from this point.
Yeah. And I'm also talking to women who are still in relationships who are questioning, because I talk to women at every stage.
Right.
Especially around this midlife time. I think my husband just floated me a statistic because I was acting a little kooky, that I don't know, some outrageous large percent of percentage of women who ask for divorce during the menopause years.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were hazarding some guesses as to why that might be. And
hormones maybe, or empty nesting.
There's a place where you go, oh, I remember why I picked this, what I picked it for. I felt I needed it at the time. It served a purpose. And now a lot of that purpose has moved on and moved out or changed. Do I now want to choose this because I don't need it the way I needed it? Do I want to choose this relationship? So I meet a lot of women who are in that position of they're in the questioning. They're in the wondering. Does this deserve a divorce? Does this just need a reboot? How do I know I've done enough to warrant such a big thing as a divorce? All the way to the woman who knows she wants it, but she's scared to death. All the way to the woman who has now initiated it. And now I call that stage anxious, right? She was fearful. Now she's just anxious, right? She's done it. She's done the hard part, but now it's a whole lot of anxiety to then the post-divorce moments where there's much freedom, there's much relief, and then there's a whole slew of new fears and problems. So there's a lot of different stages. We can dive in wherever you want.
Well, I'm grateful that you actually rewound the videotape to that point, because I think we first need to meet some women where they are. And, many are single now and in the dating realm. And we've touched upon that quite a bit. But many are, as you say, starting to question their relationships for a variety of reasons. And, I think that there are a lot of questions that we have to ask ourselves during that time before there is any rush to judgment in all of that. So I know you talk to a lot of people in counseling and guidance in these areas. What do you ask women to examine at this point if they're feeling kind of like, I'm not so sure about this and where I am?
Right. As you know, I believe in the head, the heart, and the hoo-ha, right? Yep. So there's the practical reasons we're together, the way our lives work together. There's the connection, and then there's the turn on. In a lot of relationships over 10, 20, 30, 40 years, the hoo-ha goes away if you don't tend to it. The heart connection can be lost because there is so much distance, distraction, withholding, lying, infidelities of different kinds that breaks the heart bond that may have once been there. And then when it comes to head, what was practical when you started? We want to raise kids. We want to be in this area. We want to practice this kind of spirituality. We want to just may have changed, literally may have changed. And so on all three of those, the head, the heart, and the hoo-ha, you've either grown together or you've grown apart, or in some cases, one of you stayed right here. And the other one went like that. So I'm asking women to reassess all three H's, to reassess their dream, what it is they really want at this stage. And then the really big question is, does your partner want to go on the ride of fixing things with you? That's a huge one. A lot of women come to me and they go, can I fix it? He doesn't want to come on the ride. And I say, well, there's a lot we can do. We can clean up your side of the street. But if he doesn't want to come on the ride after that, then no, we can't.
Yeah. So it's a very contemplative stage. And it's one, I would say, where communication is going to be playing a key role, because you first have to identify what it is that you're feeling. Then you've got to be able to articulate it. And that's scary, isn't it, Laurie? To see, oh my gosh, is my partner seeing this in me or feeling this in the relationship? And do they have a similar sense of, we want to get to the same place and let's do it together as a team? And if you find out they don't, that's where it gets really uncomfortable.
The bad news about that is if they don't, there's not much more you can do. The good news is you can say you tried everything.
That's true.
And there really was an irreconcilable difference, because there are only a few irreconcilable differences, but they are truly irreconcilable, right? If you have values that conflict, that cannot be negotiated, that's an irreconcilable difference, right? If you want to travel the world and the other one wants to stay home, that's pretty irreconcilable. If you want to see other people and your partner doesn't want to, that's pretty irreconcilable. If you want to, the most obvious for me is often when one wants more children or wants children around and the other one doesn't, or when one person wants to work on it and the other person doesn't. So there are a few things that are truly irreconcilable. And I like to give women the permission to call that shot. Especially if they've been trying and not necessarily being met in all that trying.
That's a good point. And some women, it's interesting too, irreconcilable differences. Some women feel a betrayal of trust cannot be reconciled whatsoever. Once betrayed and can't get over it. And some do find a path through it. And there is no right and wrong in that scenario.
Yeah, what I say is actually it's irreconcilable if somebody cheated on you in whatever way. It could be financial, could be emotional, could be sexual, and you can't forgive it. That's irreconcilable, right? So there's a lot you can do in your spirituality. There's a lot you can do in your own healing work to be able to forgive it. And some people can't. And I would say there's a very different situation when somebody is remorseful for what they've done, confesses it, wants to fix it, is seeking their own healing, counseling, therapy, coaching, spiritual work. That's a very different ballgame than someone who got caught and wants to keep the marriage together for the optics, versus loves you, messed up, sees what went wrong, and wants to fix what went wrong, both the cause and the symptoms.
Good point. You talk about the level of fear that can take place in the situation and anxiety, but you also talk about a release. When does the release come?
I see a couple stages. The most uncomfortable I see a woman is when she is going through that assessment and having to say, this is what I'm experiencing. This is what I need. What do you think? And what's the partner going to say? Is the partner going to meet her there or not? That's a very tense situation. And there is a release in just, I call it a laundry list, right? It's a list, it's a finite list. And that should be a relief to know it's a finite list. I've never seen more than 30 things on the list. For most people, it's about 10, things that hurt my feelings, things we never resolved, things that might be irreconcilable differences, the traits you have that piss me off and mine that piss you off. It's not an infinite list for most couples, especially if you've been doing any communicating along the way. If you haven't communicated in 20 years, it could be more than 10 things, but it's a finite list. And I think it's very tense in that moment when you don't know how they're going to respond. And I've seen many couples where it's like such a relief. Oh my God, thank you for telling me I can fix that. And then I've seen other couples that are kind of like, and there are things my husband has brought to me that I just kind of go, I don't think I can fix. Like, I think you have to fix that one because I don't think I can, and vice versa. Yeah. So that's a very tense moment with a relief after, even if the answers aren't what you want. But then the next big relief is when you make the choice and you tell your kids or you tell your community. That's a huge relief because all your fears can now become reality instead of projection and catastrophizing. Yes. And then when you get those divorce papers, there's that third of like, oh my gosh, I did it. I actually made it through this whole thing.
Yeah. I think that imagined fear is probably what keeps people on the sidelines of inaction. Because that can be larger than what would actually prevent itself. And I will say too, just from my own personal experience, that cycle that you talk about, that fear, anxiety release, that's not a one and done. I mean, so even after a decision is made, you can still cycle through those things as the process continues, as the fallout continues. There can be a continuous cycle of that until the weight and the gravity of it drops.
It's so true. And that's why it's so important to have your community set up, to really be methodical and thoughtful about it, to feel that you've tried everything, to feel you've gone through your own process, to feel secure and stable in your choice, and then to have people around you that can remind you why you made the choice, what the direction is that you're headed in, to tell you what's the opposite of horror stories. I don't know what's the opposite, happy stories, stories with a good ending, where you can
success stories where it worked out and you moved on and you found love.
It's so important to have somebody fill your head with the right kind of stories in those so vulnerable moments.
That's true. You're right about the group that you surround yourself with, how critical that is during that time, and to feed yourself with good word, good thoughts, good people, for sure. Yeah. What would you say, Laurie, are some of the bigger issues that women in this stage are dealing with as they kind of emotionally work through a separation and potential divorce?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not doing it in a vacuum. And I mean, you can attest to this more than anyone. Everyone has an opinion about your choice. And for some reason, they think it's their business.
Right.
A lot of them are trying to be helpful and supportive and think their opinions are helpful and supportive. And maybe occasionally they are. But there's a whole slew of people that, we are a society that gets fed gossip and we kind of like to watch a train wreck, and we kind of like when bad things happen to other people. I mean, it's like, we're not that great. We've got angel and devil. So unfortunately, in addition to having to face whatever mistakes you've made in your marriage and to face whatever has been done to you in your marriage, you also have to take in, if you allow this to happen, you have to take in everyone's opinion, including your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your kids, your coworkers, your family, your friends. And that is a lot. And it is enough to keep a lot of women. I've seen a lot of women wait a very long time. You know the joke about the 98 and 90-year-old couple that went to the lawyer to get a divorce. Right. And the lawyer says, just curious, but, why'd you wait till this age to get, we wanted to wait till the kids were dead.
Because now you don't have to tell them.
You don't want to mess
the kids are gone. So there's really no accountability to anybody anymore. But you're so right. You're so right. Again, the fear of what other people will think. And again, we're rooted in fear again and anxiety. So I'm so grateful we're having this conversation. We're chipping away at it, and we're having a heart to heart just about navigating tough decisions in relationships. And if you are, at that point in your life and you're having to critically analyze and look at your relationship, I'm grateful Laurie is here on board just to kind of talk about it and talk it through so you don't feel alone. And then we will also address the other side of that equation. And that is, the moving on from it. So Laurie, we'll take a quick commercial break. Give thanks to our sponsors. They make this content free for everybody. And we love that. And we'll be back right after this. Hey, look, I get it. Coffee is a morning go-to, but those jitters in the afternoon crash, no bueno. Mud water has been such a game changer for me. It's not your average cup of joe. It's a cozy mix of cacao, chai, turmeric, and adaptogenic mushrooms that'll help you feel focused, laser sharp, balanced, and not wired. It's smooth, it's steady, and honestly, it just makes you feel good. Plus, it's so easy to make. Just 2 minutes, hot water, milk, or maybe a milk substitute, and you're ready to tackle the day. And if you're a matcha lover, by the way, their matcha starter kit is a must try. It's a perfect way to step into clean energy with matcha's calming, focused boost. Every ingredient in Mudwater's products are 100% USDA certified organic, no GMO, gluten-free, vegan, and kosher, and 0 sugar and no sweeteners added. Are you ready to make the switch to cleaner energy? Head over to mudwater.com and grab your starter kit today. Right now, our listeners get an exclusive deal up to 43% off your entire order, plus free shipping and a free rechargeable frother when you use code OVER50. That's right, up to 43% off with code OVER50 at mudwtr.com. After your purchase, they'll ask how you found them. Please support our show. Let them know we sent you. Keep your energy natural and refreshing all year long with Mudwater, because life's too short for anything less than clean, delicious energy. You're eating healthier, you're moving more, so let's talk about your gut. It seems everything is connected to our gut microbiome. Fact is, we're learning so much about how that is key to our mental health, immunity, and of course, digestion. And if you're looking for digestive support, Ritual has your back, or rather your biome, with Symbiotic Plus. It's a 3-in-1 supplement of clinically studied pre, pro, and postbiotics to support a balanced gut microbiome with daily use. Speaking of daily use, I take mine every day, usually at nighttime. You can take with a meal or without. Has a wonderful minty essence, and I've mentioned before, I feel far less bloated from taking it, and I digest food so much better. So don't you think it's time to get your gut going? Support a balanced gut microbiome with Ritual Symbiotic Plus. Get 25% off your first month at ritual.com/over50. That's ritual.com/over50 for 25% off your first month. Welcome back. My guest today is relationship coach Laurie Gerber. Laurie coaches couples who are together. She also will coach singles who are entering the singledom, the dating space, the new normal, shall we say. And we're really talking about divorce detox, determining if you have to go through a divorce, if it's your choice to go through a divorce. And Laurie, before the break and while we were in the break, you told me, you want to make sure that people sort of meet this checklist of what they should go through in terms of exploring all options to feel like they have basically dotted every I and crossed every T, so they have peace in the decision making. What would you say that is?
Yeah. Well, I thought it would be useful to those questioning divorce for me to tell you what I do with couples that come who want to work on it, who say, we will do whatever it takes. Tell us how to fix this. We know we used to love each other. We've grown apart. What do we do? And I take them through three steps, 3 stages, 3 lines of, let's say, lines of inquiry.
Right.
The first is philosophical, or I call it spiritual because it's invisible and sort of beyond what we can touch and taste. And that is to do with what our belief systems are. Do we believe in the same things? Do we believe that family brings us closer together? Do we believe that praying together brings us closer together? Do we believe that we are responsible for our own happiness? For example, do we believe that alcohol is getting in the way of our success as a couple? So what are our beliefs? A lot of couples go into relationship never comparing belief systems, if you can believe that.
I
right?
can't.
Really, one thinks let's hit the kids and one thinks let's definitely not hit the kids. One thinks let's go to church. One thinks let's not go to church. One thinks I can travel half the year. The other thinks, oh no, you can travel once a quarter. So, and they don't line it up. And so the stuff unfolds over time. And when the haze of the lovey-dovey stuff wears off, they're left very upset that they don't agree philosophically on how to run a household, how to run a life, how to run a partnership. So the first thing we do is check, do y'all agree? Good news, most people find out they agree, but they don't necessarily know they agree because they haven't necessarily been living true to what they believe.
There's a nugget.
Yeah. So maybe they do both believe, oh, sober on date night's better. Oh, having regular sex is better. Oh, talking things through when I'm upset is better, but they're not actually doing it. But at least the fact that they agree philosophically now gives them a place to work from. So that's the first part, very powerful. If we find out they do not agree philosophically, can we negotiate a bridge? My husband likes to make decisions at the last minute. He likes to look at the whole field. He's a team sports guy, and he really does not like to try to kick the goal till he is right near the thingy. And I like to plan everything weeks in advance, and you can't do that in a game, right? So can you bridge that, right? Can we do it my way on some things, his way on some things, and both make our peace with the fact we're both right, but we're not the same,
right?
Or do we have an irreconcilable difference? Do you really want to have an open relationship and I really don't? Or do you really want to be forgiven for cheating and I really can't forgive you? So that is a belief system, right? That's a belief system. Then we talk about emotional. Emotional has nothing to do with your values necessarily. It has nothing to do with what you say or what you do. It's a feeling, right? I'm not over that thing you said. Well, that thing I said didn't mean the thing you thought it meant. Well, I'm still not over it. I need you to really understand what I thought you meant, even if you didn't mean it. And so for the emotional hurts, we have to talk it through so each person gets the other person's world, whether it makes sense to you or not. When you wear blue, it makes me think of my dead mother and it ruins my day. Can you please only wear green? Okay, maybe I can only wear green. Maybe I can accommodate your weirdness, your emotional issues. So that is a very finite process that you do with a professional coach or a professional therapist, and you go through each and everything on the laundry list, and you hear each other's experience, and you validate it, and you apologize where you can, and you make it better emotionally. That's that part. That can be so healing and beautiful for a couple if they want to heal it and they want to understand each other's worlds. Most people are not communicating to understand each other's worlds because we have no training in it and nobody's helping us do it.
That's right.
So that's that piece. Once you agree on philosophy or agree to disagree but negotiate, and you have cleaned up and cleared up the emotional hurts because you trust each other and you want to win with each other, then you can talk about the physical. Okay, how many times a week do we need to be having sex? How many times a week do we need to be alone, no interruptions, undivided attention? What kind of conversations do we have? What kind of trips do we need to be doing? What kind of things do we have to do to care for our own health and mental health so that we can show up great for each other? Now we're in the realm of physical. So then we basically redo the marital vows. It's not love, honor, protect, and obey. It's not fidelity and then nothing else. It's really what kind of rituals and routines and practices and laws do we need to live by to keep this thriving, not just keep it good on paper.
Yeah.
And so that's the process. And so I think if two people want to do that process, are willing to do that process, it not only can save a marriage, make it better, but it can also lead to a tremendous amount of personal growth, and internal growth.
It is a lot of fine tuning. And I think, you will probably agree with this. A lot of couples, when they attempt to even have conversations, the blame game begins because there's so much built up resentment and frustration from the lack of proper communication, of effectively communicating your feelings. It becomes the you don't, you won't, you should, you shouldn't, all the shoulds, the shouldn'ts, and the this and the that shows up, which leads to very tense and heated arguments that are unproductive and create even further division. So I'm glad you brought up the point that guidance, whether it be a counselor, whether it be literature and books that you read that's helped set up a protocol, whether it's a pastor or spiritual counselor, whatever, to honor and acknowledge that, hey, this has gotten so big and so out of hand and so far from where it needs to be that maybe we don't have the skill set to get it back on track. And let's seek the guidance. And you know what? There's no stigma in that. There's no stigma in seeking help, right? That I have to have this all figured out on my own.
Yeah. And you really want to be able to say, I tried everything, and your limited brain is what got you into the mess to begin with. When I came to coaching in a near divorce experience, and I did not know what I didn't know. I couldn't see. I knew I got myself in the mess. So theoretically, philosophically, I knew I could get myself out, but I did not understand the steps at all. I needed an outside perspective that could see the whole field, because I could only see what was right in front of me, and what was right in front of me didn't make sense to me. So I really, it's a great point that helps. And also we get accustomed to lying and hiding what we really think and hiding what we're really up to and proving bad theories, which is another form of lying, which is collecting negative evidence on our partner based on our own bias. We know this from science that the researcher biases the results. If you think, I thought my husband was an idiot and I had a million pieces of proof. I thought he didn't care about me, and I had a million pieces of proof until I realized, what kind of scientist am I being here? Like I'm the scientist that's going to win a divorce. Do I want that? And I started to collect different evidence when I realized I was doing that. And lo and behold, we can really manipulate our statistics if we want to.
Yeah. People would say, aside from, fidelity issues, financial issues, probably the number one issue is communication and a lack of listening. Do you feel that alone can be a non-negotiable if somebody just can't learn to listen?
I think most people can. So I'm hopeful about that. I've seen amazing turnaround in a human, including myself, really just kind of having the epiphany, oh, that means I have to only be listening to what you're saying, not thinking about what I'm going to say. Mm-hmm. And then the practice I do with my clients and with myself is you write down what the other person's saying as they're saying it. You take notes and then you say back what you heard. Mm-hmm. That's how you practice. And you can practice. So I've seen a huge cross section of the population improve vastly, including myself. Mm-hmm. There is such a thing as narcissism. Mm-hmm. There are different kinds of brains and neurotypes and neurology. There are different types of neurology that allow for certain things better than others. And I think everyone's different. So I think there are people who are much less predisposed to be able to listen. Yeah. And that's a real factor. But it's a bit of a cop-out to potentially label your partner as one of those if they have not been trained and incentivized. And if it hasn't been modeled by you, right? If you think you're the one who knows how to do it, please start modeling it. Mm-hmm. To prove that it's possible. That really does work in most cases.
Right. Great start. What's your advice for people who say have financial fears? I know a lot of women feel a little bit like their hands are tied because they can't, maybe the husband's the provider or they just don't make as much or they're worried, go through a divorce. There are financial consequences in a divorce. It is costly. How do you talk to people through that?
Yeah. The rule for me is you have to weigh what you think the financial cost is going to be to what the other costs are going to be. And I know finances is one of those things that we equate with security, right? Like if I have enough money, everything will be okay. But unfortunately, that's not a fact. It actually isn't a guarantee that you will be okay if you have X amount of money. And it isn't a guarantee that you won't be okay if you don't have X amount of money. So
Sure.
we create these kind of like I said before, we create these constructs or these biases, and then we prove them to be true. And I often want to, I give the same challenge to someone who says they can't leave a job they hate. What's the cost of staying? I am a very anxious person, so I would never tell someone to just leave a marriage or a job without very thoroughly, caring for yourself, figuring out how you're going to care for yourself financially and emotionally. So I'm not rash at all in suggesting that somebody disregard those factors.
Yeah.
But I find it remarkable how often after the divorce, post the big decision or leaving the job or whatever it is, the person goes, I can't believe I was going to let money be the thing that kept me, because the amount of freedom, joy, pleasure, happiness, love, whatever, self-expression, whatever it is so far outweighs the benefit I thought the financial security would bring me. And financial security can come in infinite ways. So it's, you may like how you have it set up now or be used to how you have it set up now, but there are truly infinite ways to set yourself up to feel secure. So don't get too focused, I would say. And get great advice, obviously. Get great legal advice, get great financial advice.
Absolutely. Bring in a team, and that includes all people. That includes prayer, pastors, friends, attorney, whatever you have to do to be informed and emotionally and spiritually supported during a difficult time. We're going to take another break, Laurie, but we're having a very heartfelt and honest conversation about a divorce detox. We're going to get to that in just a bit. One of the things that I want to talk about when we come back is recovering from infidelity. And that's a big one for a lot of people. So we'll hit that on the backside of this break on Over 50 and Flourishing. Spring is here, and as the seasons change, so do our skin's needs. Shifts in the weather can leave our skin feeling irritated, tight, dry, especially if you have sensitive skin or conditions like eczema. But what if your skincare routine could actually help calm your skin down and, bonus, reverse the signs of cellular aging at the same time? Well, cue OneSkin, the only company with the OS1 peptide. I love OneSkin's product line. I find it very easy to use. I have on OS1 Face and OS1 Eye underneath all the makeup that you see here if you're watching this podcast on YouTube. Founded and led by an all-women team of skin longevity scientists, OneSkin is redefining the aging process with their proprietary OS1 peptide, the first ingredient proven to help skin look, feel, and behave like its younger self. Get 15% off with code OVER50 at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code OVER50. After your purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Invest in the health and longevity of your skin with OneSkin. Your future self will thank you. Let's talk for a moment about being overextended. Oftentimes when we say yes to others, we're saying no to ourselves. Neglecting our needs for far too long can lead to resentment and burnout. We've talked about this so many times on the podcast. You know the deal. You got to put your oxygen mask on first to help other people out. Here's one amazing way to say yes to yourself, the Calm app. Calm is the #1 app for sleep and meditation, giving you the power to calm your mind and change your life. I've been using the Calm app for years. In fact, the daily Calm meditation is one of my absolute favorites, but I use it to help myself relax and fall asleep as well. They've got sleep stories, sleep meditations, even calming music that will help you drift off into restful sleep. And we know how precious that is in midlife, don't we? So stress less, sleep more, live better with Calm. For listeners of our show, Calm is offering an exclusive offer of 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/over50. Go to calm.com/over50 for 40% off unlimited access to Calm's entire library. That's calm.com/over50. Welcome back. Laurie Gerber is my guest today on Over 50 and Flourishing. We are talking about and navigating the landscape for those who may be considering or going through a divorce, questioning relationships, trying to move forward from them. Laurie, you've been basically helping people go through the steps to fully decide and determine, to feel like they've checked all the boxes, to make sure, okay, I really know what I'm doing here. I've tried everything. And I can do so. I can move forward in peace. I asked you, before the break, we were going to talk about overcoming and recovering from infidelity, whether it is emotional, sexual. People, you say infidelity, the first thought that comes to mind is physical sexual betrayal. Right. Infidelity also can be financial, where somebody doesn't disclose things to you financially and you find yourself in a situation you never knew you'd be in. Are these recoverable? I mean, I know some people can and some can't. And how do you determine what camp you fall in?
Yeah. By the way, I do find a lot of people whose parents maybe had sexual infidelities or relationship infidelities, they vow they'll never do that and they stick to it, but then they end up doing a financial infidelity. So it's very interesting how the apple does not, it's very hard to break a lineage. And it's almost impossible to break a lineage if you don't know your lineage and you don't know what you're trying to overcome. So in addition to the fact that we live to 100 now and, have healthy sex lives for, 80 plus years, the challenge of staying monogamous and staying faithful is it's really a whole new ballgame than it was, 100 years ago. Right. And without religion, being as pervasive as it once was. So we are left to our own devices and constantly tempted. And it has become extremely commonplace to consider being outside of our monogamous relationship. And yet many of us really, really, really want that. And all genders, right, really find it sacred and beautiful to make that one promise that it's just you and me and do the day in and day out work to stay true to that promise. Mm-hmm. So I still believe in it. I still believe a lot of people believe in it. And I still believe a lot of people really want it, can do it, and thrive from it. But you cannot rest on your laurels. You can't get sloppy. You can't get lazy. You can't say, oh, it's fine to not, keep the spark alive. You just can't. It was one of the things I was doing. And I was married to a great guy who was not going to cheat on me by principle, but I took sex away. Right. It's just such a mean thing to do and such a hard thing to do. And women do it all the time. I hear about it all the time.
Why? Why do we do that?
I think a couple reasons. One, because we feel unloved, unappreciated, unsafe, unsexy for our own reasons and for reasons inside the relationship. And two, because it's a good way to control and punish a man. Somebody. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's kind of, and I think three, because was true in my case, we did not know how important it was. We thought it was as important to him as it was to us, which in some cases is not that important. Yeah. So I for sure projected that. And since my husband's not a complainer and he's not a rapey guy, I didn't know. I didn't know that I was taking away something so important until I put it back and saw how happy it made him and how good it was for our relationship and how just truly fueling it was to everything good in our relationship for me too. Right. Mm-hmm. But certainly a primary fuel for him. So back to the topic, is it recoverable? I think it's very hard to recover from, especially if you were someone who by principle believes in monogamy and who has done the hard work herself to maintain it, right? If you have also cheated, and oftentimes that's the case, is that both members of the couple have cheated. Whether it be one's emotional, one's physical, they're both emotional, whatever it is, it's often way more likely to be reconcilable if both people did it. And so they can see they can see the sickness in it. They can understand it. They can forgive it, and they can build together how to trust one another again. Similarly, if someone does it and it's one time and it's drunk and there's remorse and you get to the root of what was wrong in the relationship, I think that can be healed. But if it's one person and it's more than once and it was kept a secret and their parents cheated too, and then if you just keep adding on the factors, I would much more likely support the other person in keeping their eyes wide open to it's a pattern. Right. It's a very hard pattern to break, especially if the person is not treating it like one day at a time, I'm going to manage this back into submission. If the person isn't remorseful, those are the flags that say it's time for you to get out of what I would consider to be a codependent relationship where you're going to be hurt again. And that's a very hard thing to admit and accept. I think that's as hard as trying to stay together and make it work. They're both very hard.
Right. And that speaks to, lying in a marriage. Somebody lied, you lied, somebody lied to you, getting over the lies. How do you know if somebody's speaking the truth to you in the future? Discernment.
Yeah. So lying is one of my favorite topics. I did a whole TEDx talk about it. I was fascinated by the research on lying and how absolutely ubiquitous it is. And they even discovered in a scientific study that pigeons lie, the bird. The bird. So, and we know babies fake cry. So, we know that human beings have this propensity to misrepresent the truth and to manipulate to get what we want. And I haven't met a human yet that doesn't have aversion. Some people really are trying to get power. Some people are, subjugating themselves, but in a way also getting power. So there's different flavors and different ways that it looks, but human beings lie. And so this is what I tell my clients. You cannot hope that human beings will stop lying. Don't be stupid, right? Like keep your eye. It's like did your kid tell you that they were at their friend's house?
Yeah.
50-50, maybe they were. Don't be dumb. People lie and people lie to get what they want. And that is probably never going to change. But if you can cultivate a culture in your relationships, your love relationships, your friendships, your family, please use this with everyone, where the truth is honored, the truth
and safe,
is celebrated, the truth is welcomed, which is not an easy pitch, then you can hope for a relationship or relationships in which we are seeking the truth. We are inviting the truth. We're working with the truth. We're aiming for the truth. We're aiming for the truth to ourselves because a lot of people go, I didn't know, right? Like I didn't know I was lying. I was lying to myself.
Right.
Yes. So you really do need safe relationships where you can keep saying crazy stuff until you can get to your truthiest truth, I call it.
The juiciest, truthiest truth.
Yes. Yes. So that's the best we can hope for.
Yeah. And what about anger? Because my goodness, if you faced lying, betrayal, or, a myriad of all of these things, you're going to have anger and resentment. And that is just junk that you got to clean out of your garage, no matter what, whether you're moving forward, whether you're trying to resolve, whether you're trying to, move forward in new relationships, anger is just a nasty thing to hold on to.
Yeah. And it's one of the stages of grieving. As we know, I'm sure you've talked about the stages of grieving. So when you discover somebody is not who you thought, or even when you discover you are not who you thought you were, or something is not, the bank account is not what you thought it was, the fidelity is not what you thought it was, your kid wasn't at his friend's house, whatever it was, there is a loss there. And so there's denial, there's bargaining, there's anger, there's all the stages of grieving that you would expect to have to move through. And there's no shortcut through moving through stages of grief. In terms of anger, playlists are amazing. Beating on pillows is amazing. I highly recommend crying. There's all kinds of breath work you can do and therapies you can do, and people I think there's places you can go and throw dishes on the ground or glass at the wall.
Yeah, there are. I think we've done a story on that once.
It's not dumb. It's not dumb. There is something to be said for embodying the feelings because you've been trained to push them down. And we know that's not healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. What about, mental illness involved in any of this? And can some of it trigger mental illness? And how do we move forward in that journey?
The one thing I want to say about mental illness is that I would say in a good 10 to 20% of the cases where people end up getting a divorce, there's a mental illness that you either didn't know about, you weren't facing, you weren't handling appropriately, somebody didn't want to get treated. And it's not just mental illness. I think there's, again, what we're learning about neurotypical brains and we're learning about the human brain and learning disabilities and addictions and mental health stuff is just, we don't know anything yet, right? We are just at the beginning of understanding all of these things, being able to name them, being able to figure out the best practices with them. And, we still just go, oh, they're crazy, right? Like that's not a diagnosis, right? That's not, we are not nuanced when it comes to understanding how brains work and how ADHD works even, right? For years I took my family members' ADHD personally, like they were trying to torture me when they were like making noise on stuff, like that's a disability, right?
Sure.
I wouldn't have been mad at them for having a broken leg,
Mm-hmm.
and similarly to mental illness. And so I think we just have such a lack of information and understanding of it in ourselves and in our partners. It has to be part of the exploration, and the proper treatment of those diagnoses and those issues has to be part of the conversation, and a refusal to engage in that has to be part of how you weigh whether or not going forward is, and co-parenting even, right? Not just going forward with a marriage, but you're stuck with this person. If you're co-parenting, you do need professional help and understanding of what are the best practices for managing that particular set of issues.
Yeah. I think, as we navigate through things, no matter the decision, there is always a way to move forward, a way to do it least destructively, honoring many of the things that you talk about, Laurie, a lot of questions that have to be answered and processes to go through. How can you take something that many people see as a curse and then find the blessing on the other side, should the decision be made to move forward separately?
Yeah. Well, again, it's so hard. It's so funny. It's like, I don't know about you, but every time I throw a family dinner, I can't seem to remember how good I feel after. I can only think about, are we going to have enough of this? Is that going to work? Will they like it? Are they going to come on time? Is that person going to be well enough? How are they going to manage that? Should we serve alcohol? It's all about the what if and the fear.
Yeah.
But I've had 100 good experiences and I can't remember that it always turns out better. And I think about that. I don't know anyone who regrets their divorce. Anyway, I've never met a person who goes, I really regret getting a divorce. I'm sure there are a small percentage of people, but
there have been couples that have divorced and then they remarried again. So if they regretted it, then they got back together.
We've heard of that. And even then, I don't know if they would say they regretted getting a divorce, right? It might have been actually really good for them. So I just think it's so important to try to widen that lens and go, just like any other bad thing that ever happened to you, you did eventually feel better. You did hopefully you figured out what the lesson was and what the spiritual growth opportunity was there. That especially with the right help, that will come. There is such a silver lining to divorce. And really, I think the statistic that the vast majority of people don't regret it is helpful to remember. That doesn't mean don't go through all of the work to make sure it's the right choice for you. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that now be a jerk through it because it'll turn out in the end. No, you have to be your best self through the entire process.
Right.
And have some faith that you wouldn't go through such a torturous process if there wasn't a really good reason to. And
Absolutely.
that it goes on.
And to your point about, I'll say doing it with class, the way that you speak about somebody to your soon to be former spouse, to friends or to children, how you talk about them and how you paint them, I think is a really, really big deal and says a lot about character. And there are certainly ways to do that effectively, and there are ways to do that destructively.
Yeah. What I thought you were going to say, which I think it makes me want to say, that it's also a reflection on you, how you talk about them.
That's right. That's
so
exactly right.
That helps you think about what you're about to say. Just understand you picked them, right? You picked them. You had a big ceremony in front of everyone you know. You made children with them. There was a time when you thought that person was pretty darn great. And even if that person changed, and in many cases that person changed, you can still honor what you chose, who they were, what they provided. And in many cases, they provided a family, a structure, offspring, things that you would never want to not have happened. And I think it's so important to focus on why you chose it, what you got out of it, what you learned from it, so that you can then, the goal being when you are dating again after divorce, your story is succinct. It is simple. It is a hopeful tale where you learn something,
right,
and where you got to know yourself better and what you have to offer even better. And that's what we're going for. That's how we know something is resolved and detoxified, is if you can talk about it cleanly, elegantly, with the other person intact, even if they cheated on you, right? That person was where they were. That's what happened. I couldn't forgive it. And so we couldn't move on.
Right.
So
I
we
think
need
that
to,
also the impact that that has on children and how children see relationships, marriage, how they see their parents, conducting themselves as well.
yeah. But remember too, the kids are absorbing what they observe.
Mm-hmm.
They are absorbing what you say, and they're also absorbing what you don't say.
Mm.
So the kids are absorbing everything. Do not think you are getting away with anything with these children. They are absorbing it, and they are learning from you what's possible. So they may see something sad and upsetting. My kid watched me fight with my husband this weekend. She was upset. She did not like it. She also observed the reconciliation and the coming back together and the learning of it.
Yes.
Which I think is actually pretty healthy, because we certainly don't want to teach the children there's no discord.
Right.
And we also want to teach the kids to believe in love. So if you were in love and you fell out of love, or something happened you couldn't forgive, or you grew apart, or you no longer could agree on how to live, it's okay. It does not mean your child can't believe in love if they see what happened and you narrate the process as an adult. Here's what happened. Right. It wasn't your fault. It was this, and this. We learned, we grew, we're still friends. We still love each other. We still respect each other. Best case scenario if possible. Yeah. And we've moved on because we live to 100 now. No generations in the past had to figure out what does love look like from 55 to 100, right? Like it just wasn't even a thing to learn or figure out until recently. So we're learning how to do that. We're figuring that out so that you, son, daughter, child, can climb up on our shoulders and do better.
And, I think that's what makes this such an interesting conversation. And, as we kind of come full circle now, for a lot of people who find themselves in a single space in midlife, a lot of people are thinking, whoa, I still have a lot of years ahead of me. Yes. I don't necessarily think I want to be alone for all of those years. I know I've got to allow myself space and grace to have some healing here and reflection and all of that. But, I want to be able to move forward. And, you and I have done numerous podcasts on that, which people, we can put links to all of the podcasts we've done about dating in midlife and entering the dating field and what that is going to look like for a lot of people. But just to kind of button us up, talk to us about what's needed to be able to get separation from that past relationship and to be healthy and ready to move forward into something new.
Great. Okay. So the divorce detox, the name of this conversation to begin with, has 6 steps. I wrote them down so I can actually read them off to you and not forget any. And this is for you if you feel you're not over the person. Maybe you're still not divorced. Maybe you're still not even decided you want to be divorced. Maybe you are divorced, but you're still thinking about it all the time. Maybe you're divorced, but you're still stalking the person on the internet. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you were never married. You just broke up and you're still pining, or you think that person was somehow the one, and now you can't have your actual love of your life. So if any of that is in your space, you need the divorce detox or partnership detox if you weren't married. And the first thing to do is admit you have a problem, just like with any detox, just like with any, I'm addicted to sugar, I'm addicted to alcohol, I'm addicted to shopping, whatever it is, I admit I have a problem. That is always the first step. The second step is you clear the space. So that could mean separate, get a divorce. It could mean if you still have their stuff everywhere, get it out of your house. If you're still going to their country house or the place they love to eat or the place they love to go to the movies, stop it. Like actually withdraw. The alcoholic does not belong in the bar. You don't belong exposed to all of the things that trigger you. The third is you set up a space where there is no communication. If you love this person and they're your best friend, maybe it's only for 3 months. You can't accept the idea you'd never speak to them again. For some of you, it needs to be, especially if you don't have a child together, for the foreseeable future, please don't reach out to me. I'll reach out to you. You need your space. I'm sorry. It really is like having a beer in the fridge if you're an alcoholic. Why? You don't just take it out. Don't let it be accessible to you if it's a weak place for you. So you need to protect yourself by cutting off the communication and being with the withdrawal symptoms, being with the detox, because it will suck and it will take time, but it is not infinite. It leaves your system. And it's just like when you quit sugar, you don't crave it anymore after a couple of weeks because it leaves your system and it stops clawing. So that's a beautiful and important thing. Hard to do, but very important. Because it's hard to do, you need step 4, the support system. So support means you need a community of people cheering you on to stay sober. Sober means you don't go back to the person. You don't keep telling yourself that person was the one. But also a one-on-one sponsor. It could be a coach, a therapist, a pastor, a friend, a buddy, someone you meet online even potentially, who will be there when you are in a weak moment. Same as a sponsor when you want to drink, who will just remind you why you said no, why it's better to be free, how great you are. And you have to go through that jonesing and then taking care of yourself, jonesing and then taking care of yourself, not using the whatever it is, the whatever your thing you use is, in this case, a person. The fifth thing is you have to learn to hear your inner dialogue. So this is what's going to be torturing you, your own inner dialogue. You have to hear it as a voice, not God, and be able to differentiate it from the voice of God, so that you can decide how much credence you want to give it. It usually only has about 7 different jags it goes on, loops it goes on. It's not as creative as it thinks it is. So once you get the hang of what are the jags it goes on, you can write those down, you can see them, and you can sort of go, okay, pause. I don't need to listen to this. Let me turn on something inspirational. Let me call my sponsor. Let me do something more. Let me turn up my playlist. Let me go beat some pillows. Let me take a walk. All of those good pieces of advice. And last is you step up your self-care. And I mean, like, you become obsessed. You know how you're obsessed with a person? You become obsessed with yourself. You become obsessed with your self-care, meaning your most primarily what you eat, drink, and how you move your body, because that is the highest leverage. Your spiritual practice is the next one. Like, those 4 are the number one. And then you can add on getting your hair done, the facial things you've been wanting to do.
Hey, wait a second. That's part of the self-care practice.
It is. I'm just saying it's fifth.
Okay.
Then
we all have different hierarchies.
And, that takes budget. The other ones don't take.
Of course.
So, then you add on all of the forms of beautification and pleasure practices that you can, because you want to feel good again. And you were using that thing to feel good. And then you were using wallowing in self-pity to feel good. And then maybe you were using food to feel good or drink. You now need to start to feel good from exercise and self-care and a massage and a pedicure and friends and making art and, all the things that just intrinsic dancing, singing, community.
Whatever speaks to your soul.
Service, right? Like the things that are just truly, truly soul enriching need to become the replacement of session until you are at home and in love with yourself again. And then your light turns back on and boom, new potential suitors show up.
Boom. And cue the next podcast, which we've covered on how to find that potential suitor. Laurie, this has been so good. Your practical takeaways are amazing to me. I mean, you cut to the quick, and you do it with such quick wit and honesty and integrity and sincerity. And I hope you know how much I adore you and how much I love having you on this podcast. I just feel like every time I talk to you, I can almost see a woman listening, whether she's got her AirPods in or listening on whatever, or watching on YouTube. I can just see her nodding to you saying, yes, or I think that, or I need that. Yeah. I think you validate so many women and you plant many seeds and you give them food for thought. And for that, I am eternally grateful. So thank you, my dear. And we'll be seeing each other again soon.
Yeah. I mean, I just think about the thousands of women I've helped, and I try to summarize what I've told them so that it can reach thousands more women. And then I do hear from the women who watch this, I really resonated with what you said, that touched me where I was. You said something that I needed, and that's my dream come true. So thank you for letting me have a mic.
Yes. Well, you speak very beautifully into it, and we will provide links to you in the description so people can find you if they would like to just check out your website, follow you on social media, maybe even consult with you one-on-one. I know you offer all of those things, so we will make you available to our audience. But thank you, my dear.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, I hope you love Laurie as much as I do. So wise, so insightful, and just a great human all around. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, because we do record it in video form, first of all, thank you. Thank you for being here on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, so you can get notified every time a podcast goes live, Monday at 1 p.m., or a YouTube video goes live, which is tutorial based, Thursday at 1 p.m. as well. We have a comment section below. Let us know what you thought. If you have any comments, thoughts, suggestions for future podcasts, we love to look through and read what you have to say. So thank you in advance for that. And if you are listening wherever you listen to podcasts, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for embracing and appreciating this content. You know, it's over 50 and flourishing, and it's for us ladies in midlife to be wise and informed so that we can make the best decisions for ourselves in every aspect of our lives, because we like to do things from a thought and an intent driven place. So I love to bring thought leaders to that space. So appreciate that you're here. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, share me. Don't gatekeep me. Share me with those that you love. Let's make this community bigger and brighter and better and stronger. Thank you. Have a blessed week, and I will see you next time. Let's talk for a moment about being overextended. Oftentimes, when we say yes to others, we're saying no to ourselves. Neglecting our needs for far too long can lead to resentment and burnout. We've talked about this so many times on the podcast. You know the deal. You got to put your oxygen mask on first to help other people out. Here's one amazing way to say yes to yourself: the Calm app. Calm is the #1 app for sleep and meditation, giving you the power to calm your mind and change your life. I've been using the Calm app for years. In fact, the daily Calm meditation is one of my absolute favorites, but I use it to help myself relax and fall asleep as well. They've got sleep stories, sleep meditations, even calming music that will help you drift off into restful sleep. And we know how precious that is in midlife, don't we? So stress less, sleep more, live better with Calm. For listeners of our show, Calm is offering an exclusive offer of 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/over50. Go to calm.com/over50 for 40% off unlimited access to Calm's entire library. That's calm.com/over50.